The ball rolled across the 6-yard box. For a split second, it looked inevitable. The kind of chance that spent 2 decades ending up in the back of the net. The kind of chance Cristiano Ronaldo built an empire on. A defender was beaten. The goalkeeper was stranded. The goal was waiting. And Cristiano Ronaldo arrived a step late. Just one step. But football careers end one step at a time. Because this wasn't a shocking miss. It wasn't a spectacular save. It wasn't even a particularly memorable moment. And that's exactly why it mattered. A few years ago, Ronaldo gets there first. A few years ago, nobody even questions the outcome. A few years ago, the defender is the one chasing shadows, but not anymore. And that single moment told the entire story of Portugal's World Cup opener. Not because Ronaldo failed, but because he looked ordinary. Football fans can forgive mistakes. They can forgive missed chances. What they struggle to accept is something much harder to watch. The moment a legend stops looking like a legend. Because while Lionel Messi spent this week rewriting history once again, while the next generation continued their march toward football immortality, Portugal walked onto the biggest stage in the sport still pretending time doesn't exist, and time always wins. The uncomfortable truth is that Portugal are no longer building a team around Cristiano Ronaldo's greatness. They're building a team around the memory of it, and those are two very different things. Because against Congo, Ronaldo wasn't terrible. Terrible would have been easier to explain. He was something far more concerning. He was invisible. And if Portugal are serious about winning the World Cup, there's a question they can no longer avoid. Not whether Ronaldo is one of the greatest players ever. That debate ended years ago. The real question is whether he should still be the player this entire team revolves around. And the numbers don't make the argument any easier for Ronaldo. Because football has always been ruthless. It doesn't care about reputation. It doesn't care about Ballon d'Ors. And it certainly doesn't care about what you used to be. It only cares about what you can do right now. Against Congo, Portugal dominated possession. They controlled territory. They spent most of the night camped in the opposition half. And yet, somehow, one of the most talented squads in the tournament looked strangely harmless. That's what made the performance so alarming. Not the result, the dependence, because every attack seemed to end with the same idea. Get the ball to Ronaldo. Find Ronaldo in the box. Wait for Ronaldo to rescue the situation. The problem. The version of Ronaldo capable of rescuing every situation no longer exists. For years, he was football's ultimate cheat code. Need a goal? Cross it. Need a winner? Find Ronaldo. Need a moment? Trust Ronaldo. It worked because he could do things nobody else could. The speed, the power, the timing, the leap, the terrifying certainty that if a chance appeared, he would punish you. But age doesn't negotiate, not even with the greatest. And that's what Portugal seem unwilling to accept, because every minute Ronaldo stays on the pitch now comes with a cost. Not because he's a bad player, far from it, but because every attack designed around him is an attack not designed around somebody else. Bruno Fernandes, Rafael Leão, Vitinha, Bernardo Silva, players entering or already in their prime, players capable of deciding matches themselves. Yet too often they look like supporting actors in a story that stopped making sense years ago. And that's where the criticism shifts away from Ronaldo. Because Ronaldo's job is simple. Compete, play, believe he can still make the difference. Every elite athlete thinks that way. The real responsibility belongs to the people making the decisions. The coaches, the federation, the people tasked with separating sentiment from reality. And reality can be uncomfortable, especially when it involves one of the most famous athletes the sport has ever seen. Nobody wants to be remembered as the manager who benched Cristiano Ronaldo. Nobody wants to deal with the headlines, the backlash, the endless debates. But international tournaments are not won by avoiding difficult decisions. They're won by making them. That's why the comparison with Argentina feels unavoidable. Because Argentina faced the exact same challenge. A legendary player entering the final chapter of his career. A team forced to adapt around changing realities. And they adapted. Messi became something different. Less runner, more creator. Less finisher, more architect. The system evolved. The role evolved. The expectations evolved. Portugal, meanwhile, still seemed trapped between the player Ronaldo was and the player Ronaldo is. And that gap grows larger every year. The danger isn't that Ronaldo starts matches. The danger is that Portugal continue acting as if nothing has changed, because something has. Everyone can see it. The defenders can see it. The defenders can see it. The fans can see it. The only question is whether Portugal can see it before it's too late. Because World Cups don't wait for emotional goodbyes. They don't care about legacies. They don't pause for nostalgia. They reward the teams brave enough to make the right decision at the right time. And Portugal may be approaching that moment faster than they realize. Let's talk about the numbers. Because sometimes the most honest conversation you can have about a footballer is a statistical one. In his prime, Ronaldo averaged close to 50 goals per season across club and country. He was relentless, unstoppable, a machine built for one purpose. But the last 2 full seasons tell a different story. Fewer goals, fewer assists, fewer decisive moments, and more importantly, fewer situations where defenders genuinely feared him. That fear used to be worth something in itself. The threat of Ronaldo would pull defenders out of position. It would create space for others. It would change how teams set up against Portugal entirely. Now increasingly teams don't adjust for him. They adjust for Bruno Fernandes. They adjust for Leão's pace. They adjust for the other Portugal players. And that shift in respect is perhaps the most telling statistic of all. Because football is built on fear. The fear of a dangerous attacker. The fear of a set-piece specialist. The fear of someone who can change a game in a single moment. When that fear disappears, so does half the battle. Think about what Ronaldo's presence used to mean at a corner kick. Every defender in that box knew exactly where he was. They marked him before the ball was even crossed. That was free space gifted to Portugal simply by having him on the pitch. And that threat still exists, to a degree, but it is a shadow of what it was. And shadows don't win World Cups. But Portugal's problem isn't Ronaldo's fire. His fire is admirable. His desire is unquestionable. Portugal's problem is the people around him who mistake that fire for form, who confuse commitment with capability, who see the desire to win and assume the ability to decide. So what does the right decision actually look like? It doesn't mean dropping Ronaldo entirely. It doesn't mean a humiliating farewell. It doesn't mean erasing everything he has given this country. It means honesty. It means a conversation about role, about minutes, about what a 39-year-old version of Cristiano Ronaldo can still genuinely offer. Maybe that's 20 minutes off the bench in the right moment. Maybe that's a set-piece specialist. Maybe that's a presence in the squad that lifts the entire group. There are ways to honor greatness without being held hostage by it. Argentina found that balance, and it took them all the way. Portugal still have time. They have the squad. They have the talent. They have everything required to go deep in this tournament. But only if they are honest. Only if they are brave. Only if they are willing to ask the hardest question in Portuguese football right now. Not what has Ronaldo done for this country. That answer fills museums. But what can he do for this country? Right now, in this tournament, on this pitch, against these opponents. Because that is the only question that matters. And Portugal's answer to it will define not just this World Cup campaign, it will define how this era of Portuguese football is remembered. Ronaldo deserves a beautiful ending. Every great player does. But beautiful endings are written by making the right decisions at the right time. Not by pretending time hasn't passed. Time always passes. Football always moves forward. And the teams that win are always the ones brave enough to move with it.